Have you ever witnessed a moment so overwhelming that thousands of people scream at the same time, yet somehow it still feels completely silent for 1 second? Because that's what fans said happened the instant Jin appeared under the lights at Stanford Stadium. Not just excitement, not just admiration, pure disbelief. And honestly, after seeing the videos, the photos, the fan reactions flooding social media, it's easy to understand why people are calling this one of Jin's most unforgettable performances ever. San Francisco was already electric long before BTS even stepped onto the stage. Fans had traveled from all over the world for the BTS World Tour Arirang concerts at Stanford Stadium. Some camped outside for hours. Others wore outfits inspired by Jin's past performances. Many simply stood there staring at the stadium in disbelief, emotional that they were about to witness BTS perform at one of the most iconic venues in America. And this wasn't just another stadium. Stanford Stadium is legendary. Very few artists have ever performed there. In fact, before BTS, Coldplay was one of the only major acts to hold concerts at the venue. But BTS made history in their own way, becoming the first group ever to hold 3 performances there. The pressure was enormous. But the second Jin appeared, it became obvious that he wasn't nervous at all. He looked calm, elegant, completely untouchable. Fans immediately started calling him God of Beauty again, and honestly, the nickname felt too small after this concert. Because photos don't fully explain what people witnessed that night. The giant stadium screens captured every angle of Jin's face as he performed, and every close-up seemed unreal. His skin glowed under the lights. His expressions shifted perfectly with the music. Even the way he moved across the stage had this natural grace that made it impossible to look away from him. But what truly overwhelmed the audience was his voice. Jin opened with vocals so clean and stable that fans online kept repeating the same thing. He sounds even better live. And if you know anything about Jin, you know that's saying a lot. His voice carried through the stadium with this emotional clarity that felt almost cinematic. There was power in it, but also softness. Strength, but vulnerability too. He didn't just sing notes, he made people feel every word. Then came the performance everyone is still obsessing over. Siren. The atmosphere instantly changed. The lights darkened, the crowd screamed louder, and Jin completely transformed. Fans described his vocals during Siren as hypnotic, almost dangerous in the best possible way. There was this haunting emotional pull in his voice that made people freeze while listening. Some fans in the audience were visibly emotional, clutching their light sticks while staring at the stage like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. And visually, absolutely devastating. The cameras kept zooming in on Jin's face during the performance, and every expression sent the audience deeper into chaos. One small smirk caused screams across the stadium. A single glance toward the crowd instantly went viral online. This is something fascinating about Jin. He doesn't need to try too hard. That's what makes him so powerful. He isn't forcing charisma. He simply exists on stage, and people become completely captivated. But the moment that truly broke the internet happened near the end of the concert. Suddenly, Jin appeared wearing a bright red Stanford University baseball uniform, and the audience lost their minds. Social media exploded within minutes. Fans joked that he looked like the impossibly handsome main character from a university romance movie. Others said he looked less like a global superstar and more like the student body president every person secretly falls in love with on the first day of school. But honestly, the reactions became so intense because the look suited him perfectly. The red uniform highlighted his broad shoulders and elegant proportions, while his playful expressions made him look both charming and unbelievably youthful at the same time. It created this dangerous combination of beauty, warmth, confidence, and softness that fans simply could not handle. Then Jin started interacting with the crowd. And that's when things became emotionally overwhelming. A wink, a tiny laugh, a blown kiss toward the audience. Every single gesture caused an explosion of screams throughout the stadium. Fans were literally collapsing into each other from excitement. Some people covered their faces, others just stood frozen in shock. But underneath all the chaos and excitement, there was something incredibly emotional happening too. Because Jin looked genuinely happy. Not performing happiness. Not pretending. Real happiness. You could see it in the way he smiled at the audience after hearing them sing along. You could hear it in the softness of his voice during his ending meant in English. He called Stanford beautiful. He thanked the audience sincerely for creating such an unforgettable night. He even called Stanford the best, making the crowd erupt into cheers again. And for many fans, that moment hit especially hard. Because longtime ARMYs know how much Jin has grown over the years. There was a time when he was underestimated by critics who focused only on his visuals. People called him handsome before they fully recognized how hard he worked as a vocalist and performer. But concerts like this completely silenced those doubts. At Stanford Stadium, Jin wasn't just the handsome member. He was a world-class performer commanding tens of thousands of people with nothing but his voice, his presence, and his emotional connection with the audience. And then, as if the night wasn't already iconic enough, fans discovered that the t-shirt Jin wore from the California-based brand Namias sold out almost immediately after the concert. Completely gone. That's the level of influence Jin has now. He doesn't even need advertisements anymore. Simply wearing something for a few minutes is enough to create instant demand worldwide. But honestly, what makes Jin truly unforgettable isn't just the sold-out fashion or viral clips. It's the feeling people leave with after watching him. Fans leaving Stanford Stadium described feeling emotional, overwhelmed, even shaky after the concert ended. Some said it felt surreal finally seeing Jin in person. Others said they couldn't stop thinking about his voice hours later. And maybe that's Jin's real magic. He doesn't just give people a performance, he gives them memories that stay with them long after the lights go out. Now BTS continues their Stanford concerts on May 18 and May 20th, and if the first night proved anything, it's this. Jin is in a completely different era right now. Vocally stronger, more confident, more magnetic than ever. And somehow, every time fans think they've already seen his best performance, he walks onto another stage and raises the standard all over again. That's why people can't stop watching him. And honestly, that's why one concert in Stanford suddenly feels like a moment fans will talk about for years.